Hello everybody and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show where we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and Ben Storms. Say hi, guys.
Hello, I'm Chris Yee.
Hey, I'm Ben Storms.
So, from the ball of stress I was last week, I have formed into my chrysalis. I have moved to a new place and emerged from that chrysalis just as stressed as I was before. What the fuck, guys? This is supposed to be...
I don't know if that metaphor makes sense, but whatever.
Don't show my metaphor.
Everyone knows the natural cycle of ball to chrysalis to whatever the fuck comes next.
Ball, chrysalis, I think boomerang, and then ball again.
I think it's actually just a bigger ball. It's just ball, chrysalis, larger ball.
So I finally moved, and I expected all my stress to melt away because I had done the big thing. But you gotta do a lot of shit. One of those things I had to do was get internet, which I was a good boy, and I did it ahead of time and set it for the day right after my move for them to come install my internet. That didn't happen.
Of course. As
I'm waiting my delivery. Installation window, and I'm like, it's kind of getting kind of late. Call them up, and I'm like, hey, what's up? Where's my dude at? And they're like, oh, we don't have you on the schedule. And I'm like, excuse me? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, you're not on it. Did you put an order in? I'm like, yeah, I have a confirmation email. And they're like, weird. He wants to schedule somebody? And I'm like, well, can you guys just do it remotely? Because I know all you do is plug it into the fucking wall and send some weird bat signal through the wires. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And so I plug it in. They send the bat signal. And I got no bats. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And they're like, well, sometimes if there's other service there might be another wall outlet, like another coaxial plug in the wall. So I'm like, oh yeah, let me check. There's one right next to it. Fine, I'll plug that one in. Wait for the bat signal. Bat signal comes. No dice. And so while I'm doing this, Sarah was like, oh, hey, I think I saw one in the bedroom too. And I'm like, oh, okay, hold on, Comcast person. There's a third one in my house. Let me go get to it. Plug it in. Wait. Bat signal. Nothing. And so, as I want to do, I pace around a lot while I'm on my phone. And as I'm pacing, being like, okay, what's the next step? I look in my living room, and on the wall across from the other two was a fourth coaxial port. So I'm like, wait, hold on, Comcast person. I gotta plug it in again. Send me another bat signal. And lo and behold, the fourth one didn't work either.
Who'd have thunk?
So, that was Saturday. Call them up, like, hey, send me a technician. They're like, okay, we can give it to you Wednesday. And I'm like, all right, we'll deal with that. So 4 days later, living in the Stone Age, Wednesday comes around, technician comes in, tries all the places, finds a fifth coaxial wire. That one doesn't work either. And comes to the conclusion that Comcast only services the even-numbered rooms in my building. Not the odd-numbered apartments like the one I live in.
So why didn't he know that ahead of time? Why
really
didn't anyone
someone...
know that ahead of time?
Yeah.
I don't really understand it at all.
I feel like someone would have picked up on that.
I can imagine it being in their system as we service this building, even though only half of it is plugged in. And I can imagine that the rooms on one side of the building are on the side where the wiring is, and they wired half the building and didn't do the other half for, I don't know, maybe there's a beam in the way or something. I don't know. But I had to switch out away from my good buddies at Comcast and got to Verizon. And then they're like, okay, yeah, we can set you up. We can book you for 2 weeks from now.
So you still don't have internet. And we're on a weird conference call thing right now.
Yes, so even though it'll come okay out in the final episode, we basically sound to each other like we're just recording this in a big old tunnel where we're all on different ends of it.
Yeah, we have some tin cans and some strings, and we've just strung them all the way across Boston.
That'd probably sound better than this.
Probably. I have a theory about this Verizon Comcast flip building thing. So I think they got into a fight, and they were like the scene in Anchorman where they're brawling in the street, all the news teams. It's like that,
Yeah.
but it's Verizon and Comcast. And then eventually the FCC steps in, and they're like, guys, and they do the sort of Damocles thing, where they we're gonna cut this baby in half, where the baby is a building, but instead of one of the guys being like, no, they can have the building. They're just like, fuck it, yeah, do it. We'll take half. You take the other half.
Cut the baby in half.
Yep, do it. Split it right down the middle.
Verizon did seem very eager to get my business, and Comcast seemed very upset when I decided I was leaving them. So yeah, there's got to be some heated turf war.
Yeah, you don't really have a choice on this one. Like, literally.
Yeah, I didn't really have much of a choice on it, but yeah, so I think it'll work out. If there's any technical problems, I'll blame them. I'll send Comcast a bill.
It'll work out in 2 weeks.
God, why am I so still? I'm so stressed, guys. I'm so stressed.
It's gonna be great when Verizon comes and says they only actually service prime number apartments.
Oh, but Comcast has got the Fibonacci sequence, so there's a little bit of a fight there. All right, well, let's answer some questions besides me complaining about utilities, because while very relatable, everyone's like, yeah, I know, they suck. Our first question today is, what if there was no wind? No wind at all. The breeze is no longer breezy.
That's what no wind means.
Yeah, but there's other implications, Chris. For example, I, by education and by trade, am a structural engineer.
Yes, you are.
And wind is the very unfortunate thing of saying, hey, you know all those buildings you're doing? You can't build them very tall because I'm going to push them over. And I'm like, you're a big jerk, wind. I was making a real nice building, and now it's on the ground. And so I started off trying to figure out like how tall we can make skyscrapers now. And one, that's very complicated. And two, that's kind of, I decided that was a little bit small ball. Like, it's a little bit boring. So I decided to turn the dial to 11, and by 11, I mean 330,000 feet up in the air, and say, can we now build a space elevator? So yeah, so the dividing line between Earth and space is 330,000 feet. Now, if you if you like have some wind up there, it's going to knock the whole thing over. But all you got to worry about is the gravity load going down, compressing the very bottom of the foundation. So, first thing I was trying is steel as my go-to strong material. And tried it out making a big old tower, and it wasn't even fucking close. It was just like, you are not having the space elevator. And I was like, well, maybe that's not the best shape if you want to go all the way to space. So I was like, hey, let's try this. Let's try a pyramid. The best building shape ever. And it got really close. It really actually got close. It was like I needed, before it got super ridiculous.
That would be like a huge amount of materials for a pyramid.
Well, yeah, I was gonna get there. We would need to use like all the steel in existence.
Yeah.
But even then, the way the pyramid works and the way the weight versus the size of the pyramid works, you can't actually make it big enough to support itself if it's made completely out of steel.
Okay.
And you're about 7% off. So if steel was 7% stronger, given that you use like the highest tempered steel possible, which is like actually like good, which is actually good, like 8 to 10 times stronger than regular steel, which was pretty cool. But even with that, you can't quite get there. And I was like, damn it, I really want my fucking space elevator. So steel is too heavy, and so I need to use a light but strong material. And one that might come to mind is carbon fibers. And throwing out the carbon fibers, as a point of comparison, carbon fibers, or we can start with steel. Steel has a strength of 2,400 megapascals, or it can support 348,000 pounds per square inch before it crushes, and it weighs about 500 pounds per cubic foot. Now, carbon fiber is actually a bit less. Instead of 2,400, it's 1,600 megapascals, but it only weighs 87 pounds a cubic foot as opposed to 500, so much lighter for its strength. And now I ran the numbers again of how my pyramid's going to do going all the way up. And weirdly, actually just a straight column of carbon fiber, if you say the top is like 3 foot wide, like probably the very minimum you need for a person elevator going up there, a 3 foot base technically works.
It works. That was easy.
Wow. Well,
we're done
right
here.
Well, not it. So obviously, yeah. So I'm like, well, that seems a little fishy. So while I can ignore all the wind effects, columns still can buckle. So for those of you who are not in the structural engineering field, buckling is if you ever have like say a straw and you push on the top and like it holds for a second and then suddenly bends and goes sideways. That is what they call buckling. This is different than getting pushed over sideways. It's actually kind of cool. It's basically saying, hey, if you push us down this much, we could be in this straight shape, or for the same amount of energy, we could be in this bendy shape. And the only thing really keeping us from the bendy shape is like slight imperfections in the material. So you cannot build a giant space tower without some imperfections. So I did have to consider buckling on this structure. And the cheap and easy way to do it is if you just make your thing fat enough, you can ignore buckling. So the slenderness ratio is what they call that. So basically for every 50 feet I go up, I can be 1 foot wide. And then buckling does not happen to my giant column. So at the end of the day, you need a carbon fiber tube going up that is 6,600 feet across, which, while more reasonable, I think is not 100% unreasonable if you want a space elevator really, really badly. It may be slightly unreasonable if you want to have enough carbon fiber to build the thing.
Right.
But can you, like, isn't it like a manufactured material? Can't you just, like, make enough of it if you really, really try?
I don't really know the process that goes into it.
We got lots of carbon, right? Like, we're made out of carbon. Like, can we just, like,
Throw humans
people
into it?
Yeah, put people, like, in a big melting pot, and just carbon fiber comes out the other side?
That's basically how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But luckily, the weight of... I was thinking about, checking in on how much the elevator components would weigh and, like, a person going up, if that would affect it. But it weighs 6.28 times 10 to the 14th pounds, which is... I'm forgetting my millions, billions, trillions math, but I think that's in the quadrillions of pounds. So I think the, 100-pound elevator and 150-pound person going up in it are not going to put a little dent on that number.
I'm just curious, because you only mentioned one weight for the material, but did you account for, like, the distance from the Earth?
Yeah, well, the nice thing... Oh, no, that's irrelevant.
That's irrelevant? Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to make it... From the atmosphere outwards, it's not going to change the weight that much.
Okay. Just thought I'd bring it up.
I did look at it. I did look at it, but the number was just like... it rounded off, so I just got rid of it. Yeah. I did my fucking homework, Chris. We do real math here. Science fucking adjacent.
I figured you'd look at it. I just wanted to bring it up because you didn't mention it.
So yes, you can have your space elevator. It's very, very big and wide. And I will say you can do stuff with it because when you are that wide, the amount of carbon fiber you have actually is about 56% more at the base than you need to hold the weight. So you can like cut some holes and make some fancy designs, run a bunch of elevators through it. It's going to be fucking
How would you
radical.
go about constructing, like, regardless of the amount of materials you have, how would you construct it?
One brick at a time, Chris. It's how you construct everything
Well,
in
you'd
life.
need an adjacent elevator to build it.
Oh, no. You can use the coolest cranes in the world. When they build tall skyscrapers, right?
Yeah.
They have what they call it a crawler crane.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
And what it does is it connects to, like, say, it has like spider legs almost, and it'll connect to the second floor and pull itself up to build the third floor. And then it'll connect to the third floor and pull itself up to build the fourth floor.
So it needs to support the carbon fiber and the crane.
Again, the crane is not going to weigh enough to make a difference.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
that base, it's all about the base, as another philosopher once said.
That's what the song means.
Yeah, they're talking about space elevators, actually.
And the cranes.
Yep.
Well, it's good I got to put my degree to use one more time. Chris, how about you? What did you do with yours?
So, when I was thinking about no wind, the first thing that came to my mind was plants and trees, because we don't look at plants and trees enough on this show. And my first thought was that, like, plants use wind to, like, blow seeds around and blow pollen around, and that's how they, like, spread. So without wind, all of them would die. I wanted to see if this was actually true. So, like I said, wind blows seeds around. So, like, a perfect example of this is, like, dandelions, where they have the feathered seeds and you blow them away. Or, like, maple seeds, they have those little winged attachment things, so the seed, like, flutters to the ground.
Yeah.
Another example are tumbleweeds. those are like an unusual version of spreading seeds through wind. And then, yeah, the pollen gets spread by wind too. So I wanted to see what would happen to a plant if a plant that relies on these things doesn't have wind. And there is one example called the swamp pink. That's like the name of the plant. So this plant was in a bunch of different places, but they have found it in places that have been like deficient in wind. And what happens is it clusters because it can't really spread out. So like a bunch of plants cluster into like one spot, and it ends up self-fertilizing itself.
Sorry, that sounds a little dirty.
Oh, it is.
It does sound a little dirty. And I guess like 48.7% of all plants are incapable of self-fertilization. So for plants that end up clustering up and can't self-fertilize, they're just going to die out. The swamp pink can self-fertilize. So what happens if it can is that it gets low genetic diversity, which means that it's very susceptible to like pathogens and viruses. So like if there's a virus that can kill it, then it's going to wipe out the whole thing just because they're all like genetically uniform.
I mean, there's another side to that. It's super duper immune to other viruses.
That's true, I guess.
No one ever talks about the bad side of biodiversity, where it's like somebody's gonna get the common cold. But like, maybe if we were all the same, this common cold would just nobody would get it because it's like, oh, we just happen to be immune to that one. Fuck off our whole species. Cold.
Sure, but then if a deadly virus comes and everyone's the same, then everyone dies.
You take your odds, I'll take mine.
Tomato.
This swamp pink actually does spread its seeds through water too. So it's not, the wind isn't the only way it does it, but it is getting kind of hurt by the lack of wind. Its conservation status right now is in what they call vulnerable, and that they say that's like quote unquote at risk. So it's not like extinct yet. It's not endangered, but it's at risk. So that's what can happen for plants like that. But plants don't only spread their seeds through wind. As I mentioned, they can also spread it through water. It's actually better through water because it can go further distances.
Right.
The palm tree actually uses like ocean currents to spread its seeds. So it can like spread its seeds across the ocean, and that's better. It can some plants spread their seeds through animals. So like externally, where it like latches onto animal fur or something. 5% of all trees do that. Ants spread seeds, and 9% of all flowering plants spread their seeds like that.
Oh, Chris, can you stop? Like, just for me, can you stop saying the phrase "spread your seed" like every time? Because
I have no other way to say that. How else do I say that?
Sow their wild oats.
Yeah, like, because every time it's just like, well, plants drizzle over animals get caught in their fur, right? I'm like, oh, please.
Yes, technically that's what they're doing. And then internally with animals, so they like ingest the seeds and then like fly around and poop somewhere else.
Marcus is having some troubles with this segment.
Yeah, I know.
My brain is just, I can't stop. Like, I know it's immature and I know it's stupid, but I cannot just disconnect it right now.
That's a shame, because usually we have such a consistently high maturity level on this podcast.
I know. You're ruining our reputation.
Oh, all right, Chris, keep going. Just get through this.
And then one of the ways that we actually mentioned in one of our other episodes, Marcus mentioned it in our All Plants Are Carnivorous episode, the sandbox tree. It can shoot seeds up to 150 feet.
Whoa!
So those are just like alternative ways. And then pollination also has different ways, so it doesn't also rely just on wind. Actually, only 19.6% of plants rely on wind to spread pollination, or pollen. And 80% relies on what they call biotic pollination. So like insects, birds, lizards, mammals, just all animals. Mm-hmm. So 80% of all plants would be fine without wind.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so it's not as bad as we really thought. And then we've only really looked at like the positive effects of wind, but wind actually has negative effects on plants too. So wind reduces the tree growth. It can
How so?
So it can erode away soils, which isn't good for trees. It can damage the limbs and twigs. Plants near the coast can get damaged by wind and salt spray from the ocean. And then plants can also get damaged from sand abrasion. So like wind blows around sand and it halts its growth that way. So those are like negative effects of wind. So if there was no wind, only like 20% of plants would die. So 80% would be fine. And that 80% would grow bigger than they are right now. They'd be healthier and they'd be bigger.
And they would fill in that 20% gap left by the other plants.
Yeah, eventually they would. So our plant life would be fine. Not all the plants would die for once.
Overall, good for plants?
Yeah, overall good for plants, maybe.
All right.
Well, that's gotta be a first for us. I don't think we've ever fixed plants before.
They're like always the first one to go.
Well, actually, the carnivorous plants episode, I think the plants won out a lot.
Yeah, but then we
us.
died too. In this scenario, we live as well as the plants.
Also, I think even in the carnivorous plants ones, I still managed to kill all the plants.
Yeah, well, Ben, that's your fucking problem.
Yeah.
Are you going to manage to kill all of my plants in your answer?
Oh, you bet I'm going to manage to kill all the plants in my answer.
Okay, go for it.
So
bring it on, Ben.
So I was thinking about a few different possibilities when I first started looking at this.
1, kill all the plants. 2, kill almost all the plants, and then all the plants.
So what I eventually the problem I ran into was that I found 3, sort of like the way that we do like an answer on this show is we'll start with something sort of like simple, and then eventually move on to something absurd, I found 3 really good absurd things that all involve terrible ways to die. Terrible and exciting ways to die. I want to put the exciting ways to die thing in there. So I decided eventually that the lead up to all of them wasn't that great, but all the ways were awesome. So I'm just going to share 3 exciting ways that you will die if there is no wind.
That's a headline right
You
there.
won't believe number 3.
3 is very fun. I'm quite excited for 3. So let's start with the one that does kill basically all plants. So the first sort of side effect of no wind that I sort of came across was that water's not really going to move anymore because... So think about like the way the water cycle works is, water evaporates, clouds form, those get blown around, eventually they condense enough that it rains somewhere else. But there's no wind. So like over a lake, what's going to happen is the water's all going to evaporate and then just sort of sit there and eventually rain back down into the lake. And all the water is going to flow to oceans and lakes and not get pushed back out to areas not by water. So what's going to slowly happen is just pretty much the entire world is going to turn into a giant desert dotted with little oases where lakes were. And really the only livable places will be either right next to lakes or maybe rivers. So rivers are going to dry up eventually because aquifers only refill when like there's rain nearby and it filters down through the ground. So it's really just going to be by oceans and lakes, and that's kind of it.
Damn.
Way to kill my answer.
Way to kill everything. That's an exciting way to die.
I'm
number 1.
I'm glad I went before you.
Hey, I can still build a space elevator.
Well, I'm assuming you want to, like, for the industrial capacity for that, you probably have to be near, like, a major city, right?
I mean, you can put it anywhere. You can put it right in the fucking ocean bed.
Oh, but I mean, like, just in order to get, have all the shipments going in and all the workers for it, you'd probably have to be near a city, just practically.
Well, you probably got to be a bit near a lake because everyone else is going to be dead in the desert.
I'm kind of assuming that these are all separate because if they happen at the same time, we're just super boned. So let's move on to method 2,
all right.
Which is that basically cities are just 100% lethal. So as you're probably aware, when we breathe, we breathe in oxygen and then breathe out carbon dioxide. At rest, we consume somewhere from 1.4 to 1.6 liters of oxygen per minute. To give an example, sort of for like some perspective on that amount, using someone else's math because I was too lazy to do my own. I found it when I was looking this up. If you were in an airtight 12 cubic foot room, there would be 339.8 liters of air in that room. That air is going to be about 20% oxygen. So that's going to be like 68 liters of oxygen. So that means that you would run out of oxygen in that room in about 48 and a half minutes. Roughly. less if you started panicking. It'll breathe faster. So
I am in like a 12 by 14 room bed, and I am now very.
That's not.
My door's open.
That's not airtight. You're good.
Open some windows, Marcus.
Open some
the
windows before it's too late.
The windows. The windows. What if I close my door? I'm fucked.
So obviously this gets replenished by plants. It was actually surprisingly hard to get like a firm number on like the rate of that. But I got 2 numbers eventually. So I found one number that said that one tree will absorb like 48 pounds of CO2 per year and release enough oxygen to support 2 human beings per year. I also saw something saying that an acre of trees produces enough oxygen for 18 people. So who the fuck knows? Because there's more than 9 trees in an acre. So there's some disagreement on that part.
Yeah, someone's got a rounding error.
Yeah, but this is where cities run into a very real problem because there aren't that many trees in cities. So like, as an example, Central Park is like 840 acres. There's apparently someone at some point, like a rough count, number of trees there. It was like 26,000. So depending on which numbers you use, that's either 15,000 to 52,000 people's worth of oxygen, which is a pretty big range, but there's also 8.5 million people in New York City. So I don't think it's going to cut it either way.
Yeah.
The way we get around this in the real world is obviously wind sort of is recycling the air, it's blowing in air from areas with more trees and blowing out the carbon, we're just keeping things cycled around and getting rid of that stale air, bringing in new air. But that's not going to happen. So just cities are going to kind of suffocate themselves. So that's an exciting way to die. Number 2.
We could put
exciting.
Put
Slow
the city on wheels.
suffocation.
We'd turn into Mad Max probably. Everything would be on the go.
Everything is rolling us towards Mad Max. Both of these possibilities. So the third one, I'm not gonna lie, the third one is a little less scientifically backed because it was really hard to research this one because it's scientifically impossible. So this is pretty much all theoretical. So, all right, we're gonna sort of talk about what wind is. Like, wind is moving air. Okay, so
yes.
I know, crazy idea. Wind is moving air. As air temperature increases, the pressure in the air is going to increase because that's what happens when temperature increases. And the air is going to move up because of how pressure works. Lower pressure, cooler air is going to move down, and that's how we get, climate and weather and shit. But if we don't have wind, technically that is wind, that movement of air. So technically what's going to happen is that as, say, the sun is out and there is air, as there frequently is in areas, that air is going to keep just absorbing heat and staying where it is and getting hotter and higher pressure as time goes on and not ever actually, equalize with air around it. So not only is the air just out in the sun going to basically be like, super hot and high pressure. Theoretically, I could not do math on this one, so I don't know exactly how bad it goes. But if you were to move from, outside in the sun to indoors or maybe even just into the shade, there's going to be a pressure differential very rapidly. And I don't know how intense this is going to be, but it could be anywhere from you go into the shade and you get like the bends like you do when you come up too fast when you're diving, or it could be like theoretically, depending on how intense this gets, if you like go inside, you could like, explode from the pressure differential. I don't know. I couldn't figure that one out because I don't know how to figure that fucking thing out. But pressure differential is a problem in this situation.
It's a pretty exciting way to die.
Yes, you could walk inside and explosively decompress.
I mean, technically, if we're qualifying wind as the movement of air, we're just not going to be able to move because we displace air, right?
I decided that displacement kind of has to happen. The air will not move on its own, I think is the best way to. Then you get into some hazy things with like, technically when you move, you're going to leave a vacuum. So I didn't go down that road because that gets just too far, but... Yeah. So like I said, that one's a little more out there, but conceivably, explosive decompression could be just a daily facet of life.
It's a little bit out there, but it's the coolest of the three.
It's definitely the coolest way to die of my exciting ways to die.
It has nothing to do with Mad Max, though.
No, that one is not. I lost the Mad Max theme.
It definitely lands higher on the exciting scale than slow suffocation.
Right, yeah. Yep. Yeah, either slow suffocation or slow dehydration. So, pick your poison.
Yeah, and speaking of exciting things, you guys should really check out these exciting new products.
That's an exciting segue.
This week's ads have been kidnapped. If you want to see them alive and unharmed, break it down on the dance floor.
How do I segue into this question?
With that exact audio.
I was thinking the same thing.
No. Here's what I'm gonna do, guys. Ready? Tell me if you think this is good. I hope those sweet ads didn't leave you guys too salty, because our next question is, what if salt and sugar swapped?
Oh, that was so bad.
Yeah, I think we're gonna use that one. Ben, you can just go ahead and start the question. We'll edit it in later.
I can't complain. I make literally the worst puns, so I have no room to judge. So, all right. So, what if salt and sugar swapped? I looked at food because that's kind of the first place to sort of start with this question. Is the first thing you think of is what's going to happen to food. So, obviously, eventually this won't really be a problem with food because we'll just realize they've switched and use the other one, and things will be fine. But all the food that's already been made, that already is, around, will be switched. So the first thing I actually want to figure out was kind of lethality. I want to make sure you couldn't just die when figuring this out. You wouldn't just buy into a Snickers bar and just conk it. So based on studies of rats, the median lethal dose of table salt is about 3 grams per kilogram, or 6.6 grams per pound of body weight. So for me, I weigh 170. So I could eat 1,100 grams of salt, and then I would have a 50% chance of dying. So you should be okay.
That's a lot of salt.
Yeah, it's a lot of salt.
So in terms of things that are currently sugar heavy, that would be eating about 3.5 pounds of jelly beans in one sitting.
So you're pretty safe.
Yeah, I'm
now slightly worried. I need a better analogy. Eat a salt cube that's the size of a baseball or something. I don't like the 3 pounds of jelly beans. That might happen.
You pick the one thing that everyone uses for the estimate the number thing, and everyone always gets wrong.
I want to say I think I saw it was oh man, I can't remember what the rate was for jelly beans to mass. It's a lot of jelly beans. It's a lot of jelly beans to eat at once. And that's only a 50% chance of dying. So you're probably fine. Even if you're currently finishing your 3.5 pound of jelly beans right now. Just flip a coin, you're probably going to live. So my first thought was basically just sort of go through meal by meal and figure out which foods would be just the worst and which would be intriguing and which ones would be kind of the same. So I started with breakfast. Breakfast actually wound up being mostly pretty simple. So eggs are basically the same. I guess you could put sugar on them instead of salt accidentally, and that's gross. But whatever. Cereal is going to be disgusting. Most of it.
Ugh. Salty flakes.
Bacon could actually be really good because it basically just turns all bacon into just automatically maple bacon, which is awesome. So
Just candy bacon.
yeah, so I mean that's good. And I realized
you're making like inside out candy bacon.
exactly. Yeah, this is great. And then like toast doesn't really change. Just like I found a bread recipe, and bread recipes have like a tablespoon of sugar and 3 tablespoons of salt. So like big fucking deal. Like it's gonna be slightly sweeter. Like all right. And then going down the toast route, like peanut butter is actually almost exactly the same. Peanut butter is like 1 teaspoon of salt when you make it, and like 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. So like it's even less of a fucking deal. And then I got to jam, and that's when the world kind of turned sideways for me.
Yuck.
So jam shifted the way that you have to think about this problem pretty severely, because jam is pretty much all sugar because it's made of fruit, and fruit is basically all sugar. So, one, jam itself is just basically just a jar of salt, but beyond that, just like raw fruit, I don't know exactly how this looks, because salt also dehydrates things. So I think you just kind of, all fruit becomes just like this salty husk. It's not good.
Yeah, the word barren comes to mind. Just like,
yeah, barren is a very bad good word for this.
Yeah, you just like bite into it, it's like,
yeah.
it's
So
like,
so then sort of from that point, I got to I was trying to think of other things that are mostly sugar, because there's like other things that, you know, in food that are just like pure sugar. And then what I landed on was honey, which does lead to a bit of a problem. I'm going to go ahead and put this out here. I managed to once again kill a lot of plants. Because
You're undoing all my good work.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I think that in like, if you just pick a random episode of this podcast, I'm going to kill all the plants on the planet in like 1 in every 6 or something, 1 every 5. It's absurd. So I started doing a little research on bees and the way that bees, you know, relate to honey. And first off, I just want to share sort of a quick segue. One of my favorite things that always comes up on this show, like when doing research for it, is this fun feature that Google has where if you Google something, it will suggest other questions about it. And the thing that I eventually was going to try and look into was, you know, yeah, how bees deal with honey and everything. But it led to this series of questions. I like to imagine one person Googling in sequence, which is, how do bees use honey? Is honey excrement of bees? What do bees make besides honey? Can humans make honey? And this is where they start getting a little furtive. Do bees poop? Do bees poop in the honey? Do bees fart? And then someone walks by, like, embarrassed, and they go, is honey a preserve? What is imitation honey? And that person walks away and they go, do spiders fart? Ants fart? Do snakes fart? Oh, sorry. Do sharks fart? And then the better one is, can snakes fart? Which implies that maybe snakes can fart, but they choose not to.
Yeah, they found out they don't, but they're like, oh, wait. Maybe, is this the snake's choice?
Can they actually
a
fart?
leisure
though?
activity.
And then they get back around to, what is special about honeybees? Because at this point, they're trying to get back to bees. And then they get back to the real root of the question, which is, what is honey exactly? Because apparently this person was Jerry Seinfeld. But the big thing is that I realized is that what bees, you know, use honey for, really, is to eat it. They feed it to their larvae to have them grow into bees. So all the bees are going to die.
Yeah.
Because all of the honey they have is just salt now.
Gonna have some salty bees.
Yeah, pretty salty bees. And then from there, we're going to get some pretty severe pollination issues because, you know, we've discussed this on, as mentioned, many episodes of the podcast. So, no more bees. Probably. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they can figure it out that they need to just go, like, grab a bag of pretzels or something, but I don't think they're going to figure that one out fast enough, so...
Yeah, the bees by the M&M factory are going to die, but the bees by the pretzel M&M factory might be okay.
Exactly. They got a shot.
we got one shot in a million.
Yeah. So, beyond that, obviously, there's lots of other, you know, just, like, food things you can talk about, which some of them, honestly, are pretty exciting. Things like pretzels, I think, are still going to be pretty good, actually. Like cinnamon sugar pretzels are a thing. I think it could work, It's just basically like a cookie at that point. But like, I think at this point, once I've realized this fruit and bee situation, we kind of got some bigger problems to deal with. So I kind of stopped going down the, hey, what food tastes weird now trail at that point.
We're all going to die, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly. That's the running theme of our podcast, as always. So, Marcus, what did you do?
Ooh, what did I kill, you mean?
Yes. How did you kill us?
So, when I was thinking of salt and sugar, I was like, where's there a lot of salt? And I thought of the ocean.
Of course.
So, my very first thing was like, well, actually, like, sugar isn't exactly toxic. Like, it is actually a good, like, biological fuel source. So I was like, what happens if you put fish in sugar water? And I'm not the first person to ask this question. There's a range of people that are interested in this. I'm going to start off on the educated end, where back in 1912, where you could apparently get a fucking grant to do anything, Mr. Jacques Loeb released the paper The Toxicity of Sugar Solutions Upon Fungulus and the Apparent Antagonism Between Salt and Sugar.
Ooh.
Where he experimented by basically putting a bunch of fish in salt/sugar water and seeing what happened to them.
Science.
Long story. Yeah. I actually did this exact experiment in elementary school for like 6th grade science fair.
Was it intentional? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was for science fair, and I was like, I'm gonna find out if fish can live in like water, like mineral water or carbonated mineral water. Guess which one they didn't like very much. I was like, hypothesis, they'll like the water they normally live in, they won't like the other waters. Conclusion, they really didn't like the water they don't normally live in. Got a solid C on that one. But yeah, so there are modern day scholars more onto my level of education, and where they publish their scholarly papers. Yahoo Answers. So Jogi asked,
Jogi.
what? Just Jogi, Jogi. What happens when you give sugar to a goldfish? I just got 6 goldfish, and my friend told me about sugar with goldfish, and now I want to know what will happen. Will they die, go hyper, and then die? Need answers ASAP.
I just gave them lots of sugar, and I don't know what to expect. Please send help.
Just the need answers ASAP in all caps got it, but like...
That's the only situation he would need an answer ASAP is
right,
if he already did it.
He definitely already did it. We can all agree on this, right?
Yeah, that's well, there are some answers. Like, I'm not sure how timely they were. I can't even check because I don't have internet on my fucking computer. But
right.
What also got me was that, like, reading it a couple of times, I just got 6 goldfish, and my friend told me about sugar with goldfish. What did he tell you? It's like, my friend told me about the sugar with goldfish. The sugar with goldfish? Yeah, it's crazy.
Did you know that goldfish and sugar both exist? Oh man, I gotta mix them.
So I think my favorite was, there's a couple answers on here about, people being like, don't, you're going to kill your fish. But I think the best was like the top answer being where the first paragraph was like, hey, top paragraph, don't put your fish in sugar water. They're going to die, you idiot. Second one. Also, a fish's top 2 senses are those of smell and taste. If it bites at the sugar cube, he'll instantly spit it out if it's not good for him. And even if a fish's top 2 senses are those of smell and taste, it's the next top sense isn't intelligence.
Right.
I do not trust goldfish to spit out a sugar cube if it's not good for him, or really anything if it's not good for him.
Now I'm envisioning someone like pulling out their goldfish and like daintily pulling a sugar cube next to its lips and just like trying to feed a sugar cube to a goldfish. I don't think that's going to work very well, right?
Look, even if it learns that sugar's not good for it, it's just going to forget in like 3 seconds or whatever the fact is.
That's also true.
No, I think that one's false. I think that one's specifically disproven. But, yeah, so all the fish die, which is, not the most interesting. So what are some maybe interesting bits around all the fish dying? What doesn't die? As far as I can tell, when you have a sugary water in fish tanks or similar, I'm not sure about the whole scale of the ocean, but what you get is an algae bloom. So they already kind of have problems with this, even in non-sugar water oceans, where there's either it's too warm or the conditions are right where this algae can just like start reproducing like way more than normal.
Mm-hmm.
And basically you get a huge patch of red or green or brown. It actually like will change the color of the ocean over there. And all this algae, all these millions and millions of algae will suck up all those nutrients, then suck up all the oxygen out of the water and really expand. And then they overexpand and then the whole thing dies off and the whole ocean is dead space there. So if the whole ocean was, basically an algal bloom, basically you would have like a week where the ocean like turned like vivid red and then everything was dead.
Yay!
It's very symbolic.
Yeah, we would part the Red Seas. And I don't know, I just had Red Seas in my head and I have nowhere to go with that analogy. Moving on. So after all this, basically you just have a big open ocean with still a lot of sugar in it. And if you leave sugar water for long enough, I'm 95% sure, because for some reason it's very hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure it just starts to ferment. And so over time, basically our ocean is going to turn alcoholic, which is pretty cool.
Are you going to turn into another party answer? You're known for your party answers.
It kind of is going to be like the worst moonshine ever.
Because it's also full of dead fish.
Yeah, it's well,
they're fermenting.
Yeah, they're
That's
fermenting
true.
too.
Okay,
They're
fair
adding
enough.
flavor. They have those vodkas where they put like the fucking like dead salamander or whatever in it, right?
Yeah, it's like, the worm in the bottom. There you go.
That's the one, the worm, not the
tequila.
salamander.
Tequila with the worm in the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. That's gonna be like the whole ocean, except it's gonna be like the ocean with the whale at the bottom.
Haven't you always wanted to combine vodka and gefilte fish? Because that's what you've done, Marcus. I hope you're happy.
I'm very unhappy. I'm gonna pull the eject button. Just get out of here before I throw up in my mouth. Chris, tell me about your sugar salt answer.
Okay, so Ben looked at food, Marcus looked at the ocean, I looked at road salt. So that's salt for treating like ice and stuff on the roads. So all the road salt that we use would turn to sugar, and it turns out that sugar also helps melt ice. So the reason the ice melts is because the salt lowers the freezing point of the water. And sugar does this as well. Actually, anything that dissolves in water can do this. It depends on how effective it is. So I want to see how effective sugar is compared to the salt. So the effectiveness is reliant on the molar mass of the material or whatever. So like a higher molar mass is going to be less effective and a lower molar mass is going to be more effective. So it turns out sugar has about 6 times the molar mass as salt, which means that salt is 6 times more effective at melting ice than sugar is.
Yeah, that's definitely linear.
Yeah, it is, actually. I mean, I found the equation. It's linear.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay. I'll take it back.
So I wanted to see, would we have enough sugar to treat the roads? Because we don't have road salt anymore. We have road sugar. And I found that we use 60 million metric tons of road salt per year worldwide.
Jesus.
So the equivalent would be 360 million tons of sugar, which is a lot of sugar. So I wanted to see, do we make enough sugar, or are we going to have enough like sources of sugar? So our main sources of salt right now are salt mines and salt water from the ocean. Those aren't going to be salt mines and salt water anymore. It's going to be sugar mines and sugar water. And from those, we're going to get 259 million tons of sugar per year. So we don't have enough sugar really to treat the roads, but we do still have salt from the sugar sources that we used to have. So sugar beet and sugar cane is now salt beet and salt cane.
Salt beet.
Salt beet is
Sounds
really
like a good
funny.
band name.
Salt
Yeah.
beet. And from these, we'll get, just based on the amount of sugar that we get now, we'll get 188 million tons of salt. So that's actually enough salt to salt the roads, but we use salt for other things too. We don't just use it for de-icing. We use it for food, as Ben mentioned. We use it for water conditioning. We use it for agriculture, manufacturing, other industrial processes. So we're going to need to spread out the salt somehow. It's not all going to... We're going to end up not having enough.
Yeah, I imagine we had a lot more sugar than salt, or, well, now they're swapped, vice versa. One of them.
Yeah,
Definitely
it's
one of them.
confusing talking about it. I confuse myself sometimes. Yeah, so basically we're just going to have a shortage of salt and a surplus of sugar. I don't know, you could like mix them, because we're going to have a lot of sugar, and sugar still helps towards the roads, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you could have some sort of combination. I didn't actually work out the combination that would work, but
I'm sure you could add other things too. You could just make a nice little cocktail of
yeah, I think
various
like
particles.
sawdust works too, I think.
Mm.
I saw that like coffee works.
What?
I don't know. Yeah. There's like a website that listed a bunch of random things.
I've heard about iced coffee.
I actually read an article in my research looking at the road problem, where there's actually I didn't write it down. Switzerland, I think it was, where they had proposed actually swapping their real life salt trucks with sugar trucks because of the negative impact throwing all that salt had on like the nearby plant life and environment. And they're like, sugar's great, it helps the trees or whatever, but salt, like, damages them.
Yeah, I think I came across that article too, actually, in my research.
I mean, it was the first Google result, so
I don't think they used like table salt though. They used like a special syrup type of thing. I don't know.
yeah, it was a weird mumbo jumbo thing.
Yeah. So that's basically all I had.
Alrighty. I think with that, we can move on to the next week's questions, which there's gonna be so many of!
Oh my
because
God.
it's a lightning round!
Round 2!
Woo! Episode 20. We're gonna do another lightning round, guys, which means we are not gonna prep answers like we normally do, but we are going to, on-the-spot, rapid-fire answer about as many as we can in an hour.
We did like 14 last time, I think.
Yeah, it was 14, 15, something like that, yeah. In the teens.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, so definitely tune in, subscribe on iTunes and all the other fun stuff, and we'll see you guys next week. If you have any questions, comments, or your own hypothetical idea you want us to answer, let us know. You can reach us by email at absurdhypotheticals@gmail.com, send us a tweet at absurdhype, that's HYPE hype, visit our website, www.nerdchomp.com/absurdhypotheticals. And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps out the show and lets us keep making it for you.